setup videos. This is for the Audi GT4 at Donington Park. Again, it's a race setup, both wet and dry. Not designed for hot laps, it's just to have a stable car for a race that will give good lap times. I won't go through every single setting, I'll just put up the various options, maybe describe one or two of them if they're changing between dry and wet. So, first of all, dry setup. On this, as I've said in my other videos, the tyre pressures are dependent on track temperatures, may need to be adjusted depending on what the track temperatures are and the other factors that might affect the temperature track, like weather conditions, etc. So the electronics. Fuel strategy, again it's a dry setup, so the tyres are set to dry, front and rear brakes are set to pads 1, that's for a race of anything up to around about hour and a half or so, anything over that you want pads 2. Okay, so that's the dry setup. Now for the wet setup. It's not very much changes, a few items here and there. Tyre pressures have to go up quite considerably. With wet tyres you need a much higher pressure because they need to run at a much warmer temperature. You want them ideally at optimum running level to be around about 29.5 to 31. Electronics for wet, I've increased the traction control to 2 to give the car more grip. As with other tracks, I found that setting traction control to 3 just means the traction control is kicking in too much and it scrubs too much lap time. So TC2 seems to be the optimum. Fuel strategy, again it's a wet setup, so tyres are set to wet rather than dry. Front and rear brake pads set to pads 3, they're the ideal pads for wet weather conditions. Mechanical grip, nothing changes, exactly the same as it was on dry. Dampers, again exactly the same as it was on the dry setup. Aero, there has been one change between dry and wet, and that's that I've increased the rear wing up to 4. I found having the dry rear wings configuration, the car was far too unstable in certain areas, predominantly the high speed sector and first sector. So making it 4 gives a nice stable car, means you can push it a bit more in the wet conditions. I've also tweaked the brake ducts, I think, between dry and wet. Okay, that's the setups. the other thing to always be aware of, as I've said previously, under controls, each car has its own specific steer lock. You need to make sure the car is set to the correct steer lock to give it optimum performance. Steer lock for both GT4 and GT3 Audi is 720, so you have to set that 720 in game, and also at the steering wheel if the wheel has its own configurations. Again, hope that's been helpful. Be posting more videos as I create more setups, and if it helps, please subscribe. Thank you very much.